Hello and welcome to Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction, brought to you by the Modular Building Institute. With a compact footprint, variety of unit options, and seamless system management, City multi-variable refrigerant flow zoning systems from Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US are a one-stop solution for modular projects. With efficient operation and the ability to connect to commercial ventilation equipment, third-party systems, and comprehensive control solutions, City Multi VRF can help you meet energy and performance goals on your next project. From off-site development to on-site assembly, you can trust our manufacturer-level support to guide you from system selection to design to startup, no matter the application. To learn more about our offerings, visit MitsubishiPro.com. Welcome everyone, my name is John McMullen and I'm the Marketing Director here at MBI. Today I'm joined by Gary Badge and Manny Lamarche of FK Architecture. Gary and Manny have returned to talk about how FK has incorporated modular into their overall portfolio and about their new efforts to design more sustainable modular structures. Gary and Manny, welcome back.
Thank you, John.
Hi, John.
Good to be back.
So since there's two of you, let's introduce yourselves so everyone knows your voices.
I'm Gary Badge, Managing Principal at FK Architecture.
And I'm Manny Lamarche, a Senior Designer at FK Architecture.
Excellent. So you guys have been on the podcast before. Catch us up on the past 10 months. What's been going on at FK Architecture? A new name, for one thing.
Sure, absolutely. It's been super busy, super crazy. We unveiled the new logo, as you mentioned, and the new brand. It's been very successful. It's been an eye-opening process, a lot involved with it. It's exciting. It's gotten us into new endeavors that we didn't even know existed. We've got lots of compliments. Our clients, our friends have complimented us on refreshing our look and image, and we've attracted a lot of new attention, especially with our social media platforms, our website. So that's been pretty fun, and it's been part of our whole means and methods of diversifying and getting into new markets and just expanding what FK is about.
Well, that's awesome. Well, props to your marketing people. I know that a rebrand takes a lot of work, so.
Yeah, it sure does. And we did it all in-house, too, so that was even more challenging. But we got a lot of great people here, and we thank them.
So how have you and your colleagues at FK made the transition to modular design? I know when we talked late last year, you guys were just getting going. Has it been a smooth process?
So far so good, but slower than Gary would like, I think. Lately, it would seem as if there is a greater awareness about modular technology, and we have been approached to investigate adapting current products to modular applications. Our most current modular effort involves repositioning a tiny house concept that we had prepared for a large resort developer into a boutique hospitality product incorporating modular components. This effort is unique in that we have been tasked with coming up with a hybrid solution, bridging on-site and off-site technologies, as well as a potential implementation of prefabricated components that would plug and play into the finished product. Mm-hmm. So at FK Architecture, we continue to explore how best to adapt our traditional way of thinking about building design to achieve greater efficiencies and tangible value to products that we design and build.
Well, that's awesome. I want to come back to some of those specifics. I have a more general question to start off with, though. Since you guys have done traditional architecture for a long time and have just now begun to incorporate modular, I was wondering if you could speak to the design process and how it differs between traditional and modular. What are the inherent challenges to each?
When we examine the big picture of technological evolution, we may notice that the human experience is always in a constant flux. There was a time when you needed a key to open a door. Today, you may use your mobile phone to achieve that goal. Just like the world of electronic innovations, modular technologies have been around for a long time. As it relates to residential products, it has been at least 100 years since the first modular and prefabrication ideas were floated around. And as we can see, it is fast approaching its prime time. The constant pursuit of greater efficiencies in both project cost and resource management tends to drive innovative thinking. Thus, economics is ever present in everything we do. There is always a fine balance between acceptable quality and the cost of a particular design solution. So, as we continue our explorations of modular technologies and have in-depth conversations with builders and investors, we're starting to notice an evolution in our way of thinking about these things, as well as a greater sophistication in the understanding of this modular field by individuals in the more traditional on-site construction industry. That said, I would suggest that the greatest difference between designing for on-site versus off-site construction is the mental process of judiciously pulling apart the individual building blocks from the building as a whole. Thinking in terms of functional compartments or modules reminds me of the bubble diagrams we used to do while conceptualizing a building during the initial stages of the design process, except that in the off-site universe, those bubbles retain their structural integrity as part of a total modular product that by design must travel to its final destination. At FK Architecture, we see only advantages with the implementation of modular thinking and technological strategies in order to deliver higher quality for the money to the markets we serve.
So, speaking of these contemporary methods, the evolving technologies that you've alluded to, I was wondering if you could speak specifically to modular design. What are the potential benefits, not only for designers, but of the projects themselves?
Well, there's been a few guys that I've spoken to recently, and I think the benefits is how we organize the project and become more efficient. Modular itself is about efficiency, it's about repetition, it's about quality control, sustainability. So all those things are playing into how we're doing our documentation, how we discuss things. Our contracting team, they're still learning. You know, we're over here on the Eastern Seaboard where we haven't done we haven't seen a lot of modular, so not a lot's going on. So they're still trying to catch up, but it's a more organized conversation, and there's a method to the madness. And when, like Manny said, when you have everybody in the room from the onset of the design process, you're getting the scope out early, you're getting everybody's questions early, division of disciplines and who's responsible for what is getting done early, and that all plays into how the fabrication ends up at the end of the day. So it's pretty helpful. It's pretty unique. It differs from how we do a conventional project because you don't always have everybody in the room at the beginning of the project. You know, we try to do kickoff meetings, we try to get everybody going, but at that time, it's still, there's something left out or something that drags on. And with modular, you got to impress that you got to have these questions answered early on, you know. And so we're exploring ways that we could even have more flexibility. So that's kind of the difference for me.
And I think it is very interesting as we speak with builders, you know, that are the guys who have to deal with all the challenges of, you know, information that doesn't show up on the drawings or is misinterpreted by subcontractors. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how they start to understand and speak about the possibilities of modular thinking and fabrication to bring efficiencies to the products that they do, or even altering the very foundation of the product they do. You know?
Well, one of the big things they're talking about too is labor. You know, the quality of the labor shortage. I mean, that's in every industry. That is something that we've been hearing all over from all clients in all sectors. And, you know, the last 3 conversations with contractors have been specifically, you know, how can I overcome my labor deficiencies? And they feel having the controlled modular environment is going to be an answer to that problem. And, you know, the waste material, that's another thing that they talk about, you know, how many mistakes are made, how much extra material you have to buy, and the cost of materials are out of control these days. So they're trying to be efficient. They're trying to still deliver the project on time, on budget, and it's a good product, that people are proud of, and it's going to stand up for a long time. So Modular is helping bring that awareness to everybody. It really is, and it's weird because the discussions come up so much recently, whether it's because we're engaging that deliverable more, or people are just catching wind of it. But it's definitely been talked about a lot. And in the last 10 months, we've had a lot of discussion, so I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, and these are people that have been doing the same on-site type work for decades.
Yeah, for decades.
Yeah. And in many instances, they are the ones that somehow they get they know that Gary has been talking, and there is maybe they listen to the podcast or swung by the institute website, and they ask. It's like it's no longer a secret. It's something that's it's becoming. Hey, I'd like to learn more.
Right.
How can I use this technology to do better?
Yeah, that's the question everybody's asking.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about the efficiencies that Modular brings to the table, the less waste that's generated, it goes back to a point you were making earlier about sustainability. Really, all of these factor into sustainability, and I was wondering why you find that to be so important. How do you define sustainability when you're talking to contractors, when you're designing products? I'm curious how you define that term.
Well, we're introducing it more and more. Okay, there was a movement years back with the Green Building Council, and everybody getting LEED certified, LEED accredited, pioneering everybody to save the planet kind of a thing. And from my standpoint, and it's my own personal opinion, I don't think it went in the direction that made a whole lot of sense. It became something that was a specialty kind of a group. It cost some time and some money to be involved and engaged in it. Lots of developers and contractors, they didn't catch on because it wasn't part of their cost analysis. It cost more to be sustainable. And sustainable to me is to be respectful of your environment, to work within your environment. The world is not a place that we can neglect, and that's all we've done as a species, in my opinion. There's symposiums every day. There's news every day about weather events and catastrophic things that are out of our control, temperatures and sea levels and everything like that. And we're running out of land. We've got more people. There's got to be a better way to integrate our existence with our canvas and the world, Earth. That's our canvas. That's what we live in. And if we can't integrate with it and we just keep recreating it and having our own agenda, well, it's gonna spit us out. Like we're a virus. Just like the COVID's doing to us. I mean, the world is doing that back. It's like I got to rid myself of this, and it's a challenge. And to get people to understand it is hard because it takes a certain kind of mindset. It takes the ability to adapt to change, and people don't gravitate towards change naturally. Last week I was at the lodging conference, and I gave a speech with some fellow panelists about this same very topic. And I talked about how modular could benefit and could be part of the solution for how we can integrate with the environment better, how we can have less impact on how we're doing things and building construction practices. And it's evident, because you're building in a controlled environment, so your carbon footprint's smaller. You're able to control the amount of material that you're building with and how many cuts it takes if you're doing wood or steel, and how you're putting things together is done more systematically than in the field. And because of that, you have less waste, you need less materials, and i.e. you're not impacting the environment as much. You're also doing your site development. During that phase, there's less disturbance of it. You're not on site 14 months. You're on site to do your initial area development, and then in a period of time, your modules arrive, and within a few weeks, you've got the project up and running, and you're getting your CO and you're out of the door. So conventionally, though, you've got machinery running a lot, you've got disturbance of the land, you got noise pollution. I mean, your emissions are not as controlled like in a factory environment. So it's really important to me, and I guess it hasn't always been. I've adapted to change, because just flying in and out of Orlando here, I've seen we used to have a lot of trees, and now we don't have so many trees, but we have an awful lot of people, awful lot of building. And our state is an easy target for building and construction, because we don't have mountainous terrains or anything to overcome that's challenging from that standpoint. It's pretty flat, it's easy to build on. But I think we're going to be quickly realizing that we have to do things differently, because it's not going to last forever. And you might not be thinking about yourself today, but you got to be thinking about your children and your children's children and everybody else for years to come, and how they're going to use the environment. And whatever practices we do today will set the precedent for tomorrow.
So you touched on this just now, but I wanted to revisit it just quickly. How do you quantify your sustainability efforts when you're talking to clients? What metrics do you use to help a project become more sustainable?
Well, I think I rely mostly on the MEP engineers to talk about that in terms of the life cycle cost analysis. Your initial costs are probably not going to be seen, but your long-term costs are going to be seen. If you're using solar energy or more efficient kinds of energy, instead of, using the split system condensing unit farm, for instance, you're going to see that you're using less energy over time, and therefore you're spending less money on your energy. When we talk about just the building materials themselves, we talk about how we're doing with wood, for instance. We have a lot of clients that want to do wood construction, which, is if done right, you can replenish the forest, but we've got so much building going on, I don't know that we are doing a good job with that. So we talk about, how can we design the building in a way that uses less material? So that's a way to quantify. And less material in turn talks about cost. And that is always a topic of discussion with anybody that we're engaged with. What's it going to cost? How much is it going to cost? Budget. And unfortunately, I think sustainability, whether we're talking about quantifying it or whether we're just talking about it in general, it needs to be thought of a little bit differently. It's about the survival of our species, the survival of us. And when we're doing a project that's affecting that, especially new construction, because most of what we're doing in our world is new construction. We try to promote clients to look at repositioning existing buildings, and we try to find sites where their project might work with that, because we do a lot of planning as well. So we're at the forefront of the project with the owners, and when they're searching out for land, and we say, hey, maybe you could do this differently. Maybe you don't have to clear 60 acres. Maybe you can do it, less acreage and get more units. But there's many hurdles with that, right? Because we also have to deal with the jurisdiction, and codes require certain things. So you got to educate everybody. It's not any one entity that has to become educated. Everybody has to be. And the only way that works is by talking about it, by collaborating, by sharing, by getting out there, having discussions like we're having today, and just piquing people's interest so that they're paying attention.
So are there any specific suggestions that when you're talking with other designers or new designers, people who are learning the craft, what suggestions do you have for them when they're looking to create more sustainable structures?
Well, I think one of the ways that we're doing it is we write sustainable materials, products, and methods into the specifications, right? So once it becomes part of that, it's sort of a gospel. Not everybody follows it, and there's always a bidding and negotiating point. But, if you're getting it in there early and you're shooting for, the maximum amount of things that you want in a project early, chances are you might be able to save them by the time you're done V'ing it and going through the process. So that's one way that we're doing it.
What we've noticed is that not too long ago, when you talked about sustainability, sustainable strategies, there was this general understanding there, I guess the general public, that you might be a tree hugger, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in the last few years, with the flooding in Europe, mudslides, the fires in California, more people are understanding that something is happening to the environment, and it's not just a normal course of, just nature doing its thing. Clearly, there is some type of influence that we are, injecting into the equation. And that starts to make people think, I believe, in, perhaps we need to reevaluate the way we do things. So when that relates back to the building industry, that's what I see, that a certain curiosity from what you may consider traditional builders, opening their minds to exploring other alternatives, and at the forefront of that is modular design and fabrication. Especially when you start looking into it and they see that, you do this in a controlled environment. You have greater quality control. So in the factory, there is ability to better manage resources. So indirectly, you start to apply green thinking into, how you can make more money. The ultimate effect is, if I don't have to spend that much more and get an equal or better product, why not do it?
Right.
And so that's a natural way into modular thinking and fabrication and planning.
Right. So specs, and then introduce in the discussion about modular, a different deliverable altogether. Those are ways that we're educating and starting conversations with other design professionals and developers to, consider, sustainability.
Yeah, because then sustainability equates to economy in fabrication, economy in, savings for the builder, for the developer, way beyond just saving the planet. It's more tangible, I think, that a lasting notion of saving the planet.
That's what always happens, and you got to show them, what's tangible, what can they put their hands on today that they understand. Because they may not understand tomorrow. They may not understand, I'm not going to have a blue sky forever, or Florida is going to become a sandbar at the point of Orlando, and the rest of it is going to be gone because the sea level rose. It's real life issues that, people neglect because, if it doesn't affect me, then I don't care.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. And is it coming out of my pocket? No. So I don't necessarily think about it.
And, our core business is hospitality and entertainment. It's hard to entertain and be hospitable when the world around you is on fire or the floods are wiping out towns and, so.
That's adventurous.
Yeah.
Different kind of adventure.
Different kind of adventures, right. Yeah. So I think it makes sense for everyone who is involved in sustainable practices, both on the construction side and on the planning side and on the money-making side, to respect the planet and respect nature and use it intelligently. And I think that modular construction is always when we have the conversation, it just gravitates to or I can do better by changing the way I think about I build the building.
Right.
Well, this is a good segue. A lot of this conversation has been about sustainability, using less materials. Manny mentioned exploring new ways to build. And I want to go back to one of the topics you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. You guys mentioned that you were working on a tiny home concept, and I was wondering if you could expand on that, sort of define that for people who aren't as familiar, and tell us about what you're doing.
Sure thing. We're currently tasked with developing a concept package for a tiny house idea we had originally created for a separate development. This time around, the market demand is for a bit larger footprint to be rolled out in a completely different geographic location and with a different demographic profile. I would say that the most peculiar aspect of this effort is that our client's strategy demands a hybrid kit of parts that would be factory made here in America, then shipped to site using conventional flatbed trucks for on-site assembly. We are now in the initial stages of defining this concept, and so far it has been well received. This hybrid model, with a combination of on-site and off-site strategies, appears to be a good scheme to introduce modular thinking in those regions where on-site construction is currently the dominant industry, but where developers and builders show increasing curiosity about modular technology. Another no less important finding is the keen interest shown by traditional manufacturers of products destined for the on-site market and who are curious about adapting such products for off-site implementation. So, we're witnessing this interesting phenomenon of cross-pollination of knowledge and skills among construction-related industries, always with the aim of doing something more efficiently, more economically, or faster from idea to market, while better managing waste and quality control. We remain hopeful that an increasing number of our long-term projects will slowly but surely transition to off-site type developments as owners realize the extraordinary benefits that modular construction brings to the table.
Yeah, the client in particular that Manny's talking about, they saw a need. The need spoke to them. They've been wanting to do something different for a while. The client happens to be a builder as well, and he wants to take this product mainstream. And the need is for more affordable housing solutions, and that seems to be prevalent nationwide. Mm-hmm. In our own backyard, our mayor said, by the end of my term, I hope to have 11,000 affordable housing units developed, because we've got this greater need and it's growing every day. So by looking to the modular industry, this particular client said, well, there's a way I want to do it, and there's a way I've got to sell the idea to the people that I'm working with. He's looking at public-private partnerships to get this thing executed. And when you're doing that, you got to sell the idea. And in order to sell the idea, he's thinking, well, what are some of the key challenges in modular construction today? And, we've identified through our discussions that it's not an infallible process, right? It has a lot of merit, a lot of promise, and people are doing it successfully, and that's what we're trying to educate everyone on. But there are some inherent things that come up that, the other side argues, well, I can fix that in a conventional setting. So if you want to make some changes later in life, something happens where something doesn't get aligned where it necessarily needs to be, and how can I make that modification without it costing the entire project? Whether it's for the duration or the success and buildableness of it. So what he's done is he said, well, what about like a hybrid solution? Why can't we panelize and develop partial things that are modules, a plug and play, a kit of parts that we can put on trucks, bring to the site, and erect with a couple of guys in, a couple of weeks, The way that he was seeing it was, okay, well, I can deliver one tiny home or two tiny homes, three tiny homes, at a clip, and I've got to get more trucks to do it. I've got all those logistical concerns. So he's looking at it from a whole solution standpoint. How can I reduce my delivery by putting more units on a single truck at a time instead of doing a bunch of individual ones? And how can I overcome the logistics of, I need this trucking industry, that trucking industry, or whoever they're sourcing. And so that became kind of a motivator. And I guess, in a weird way, we talked about IKEA, and IKEA puts, you put all your furniture together. It's sort of modular. It's not the best, but the way that it comes packaged, the way that you could be delivering it, you can deliver many units at a time instead of one at a time. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that he wanted to overcome. So that's one thing that we're looking at. And that's unique because our initial studies were fully developed modules. It was a whole unit. It was an apartment setting. So it wanted to be finished and delivered and craned and all that. So this is different. This is a kit of parts that could be done quickly with the same labor force that they're thinking of using. Because again, as I said earlier, labor is an issue. Skilled labor is an issue. So if you don't have to have a specialty crew putting something together, you've got a better advantage, and you're in a better position to build with this type of deliverable. So that's something that I think is prevalent in the discussion that we weren't initially thinking about. And it's altering the design to the point where we're looking, well, how do we then do submodules? How can we continue with this and do kitchens and baths? And, we still don't want to have to be doing a lot of conventional on-site construction. How can we still implement other modular practices and get this thing to work and to unfold? So those challenges, those sets of criteria are setting us up differently for this project type. And, we're just scraping the tip of the iceberg now with this. We're starting to talk to different people. There's a lot of people in the industry that we're talking to about, how are they able to help us, whether they're manufacturers of SS&E, millwork, case goods, or there's something like the SurePod. SurePod was at the Logic Conference last week, and they're actually here in Orlando, and they do those pods for bathrooms and kitchens and stuff. So, it's just unique, really.
So I think that what we're learning is that depending on the market segment, there is certain strategies that work better than others. For example, when we started with apartments, right? And the conversion from on-site to off-site modular technology with apartments. And that seems to be the best approach. Right? But this tiny house component is for a boutique-type resort. And maybe the panelization system, the dash modular component is the more appropriate for that particular market. In this case, it was in Texas somewhere. Right. And so, and it was a true hybrid system where about half the building is panelized, and then there are components like the master bathroom that will come directly fully assembled in a factory, and it would be just a plug and play type component. Yeah. So,
but it's for the affordable housing thing too, as I said, it's not just here in Florida. I mean, it's a nationwide issue. And, as we were talking earlier, you got different geographic regions, it might not even be possible to supply a fully developed module apartment or tiny home because of the terrain. Yeah. But you could bring a kit of parts up there just as you would conventionally, except you've got the majority of the project already built. Mm-hmm. So those are the kinds of things that we're forward thinking on. It's different. It's trying to take what's out there and perfect it and use it in a way that satisfies a lot of challenges.
Well, I think it's a great concept, particularly for affordable housing. That's a theme that's been popping up regularly, not only on this podcast, but across the industry. A huge need for affordable housing coast to coast. This sounds like a great solution to help alleviate, at least some of it. particularly in Florida and places where I know there's a need. Switching gears just a little bit, with this idea that you guys are helping to pioneer and all the other efforts that you guys have been making recently, FK has been making quite a splash lately. Your name is out. You've been in our magazine, Modular Advantage. This is your second podcast. I heard you did some work with Habitat for Humanity down in Orlando. Well, congratulations, first of all. Second, I'm got my fingers crossed. Are you guys going to be at World of Modular in April?
Absolutely. We plan on being there, and we plan on continuing discussions with the Institute. It's been a great success, lots of networking, and I'm looking forward to it. This past year was interesting with the way it was dealt with COVID, but we got a lot of mileage out of that, and I think being in person is going to be even more successful.
Well, excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for your time. This has been a fantastic discussion. I know there's a lot in store in terms of sustainability practices and benefits of modular that have yet to be really fully realized by the industry. Appreciate your time today, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We love talking. So
thank you, Joe, for having us.
Yeah, we'd love to do it again.
Sure. Well, my name is John McMullen, and this has been another episode of Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction. Until next time.